yes, you have to work on it. It has to be developed. And yes, I'm a true believer that there 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 may be a few natural born leaders, but most of us, including myself, had to learn and develop being a leader. And they have a big aha on, oh, I need to really think about, how I'm going out there in the world. I've been doing simulations for a long time in my classrooms, but this is the best one I've ever had my entire life. I'm never going to let go of it. It is a real opportunity for students for the first time to be in a role of management. When I first tell them that they're going to be the general manager of a winery, they're going, whoa, I don't know anything about that. Great, because you're going to be working with the people, not with the process of the winery. And you're not going to be picking grapes. So this leadership development plan is how I would like to be a leader in a corporation in the future, and I make them do it kind of like as if they are, rather than as if they might be, or kind of I hope to or I want to. I don't like that at all. Students learn that leadership isn't as easy as they thought it might be. I actually like the winery because they can't relate to it, so they don't have to have that. Oh, I know that. I never want students to say I know that.
Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome again back, joining us for the fifth and for the moment, the final session of our Spring Academic Live event series around learning and FLIGBY in academia. And over the last few months, we had actually quite a number of events following here the sessions. We gave, as you can see here on the slides, a series on this topic, on bridging theory and practice through this webinar series. And we have put together, I think, quite a good and interesting portfolio or collection of educators, researchers, and other practitioners around this theme. And the aim of this session is always to develop your capabilities and your approach for leadership development and management education. And throughout this few weeks that we've been doing that, I personally received also quite an astonishing amount of feedback, which made me personally accomplished. It drives my purpose. And so thank you very much for these new questions which arose and the requests to continue this conversation. And we are going to do that here, of course, tonight, to continue this conversation. But I can tell you that in the next semester, starting in September in the fall, we're going to prepare now for a new set of these conversations and webinars. So stay tuned, watch out on what's going to be on the menu then. But today we're going to talk on experiential learning, as we did as a focus topic already on the very first session of this. And we're going to talk here on how this has actually evolved in an educational approach. What are the circumstances changing in education that this topic of experiential learning is so important? What are the higher education demands, and what are the impacts? What is the relevance of this changes, and how can students be involved in discovering their own inner challenges and how they can find from these challenges solutions for their purpose? So it seems obvious that it's not about the experiential learning, whether that is important or not, but it's actually about the bits and pieces and how to design it, what kind of judgment, what decisions, how it needs to be adapted in this complexity which we see. So for this, I'm very happy to have you here, Scott.
Thank you.
He's associate teaching professor at the University of Oregon Lundquist College of Business, and he has a very high and deep experience in designing and implementing experiential learning initiatives also. And his focus is on helping the students to bridge this gap also between theory and practice. So, Scott, tell us, tell our viewers about your experience in a few words about yourself, your university. How's your work going?
Yeah, well, thank you, Zoltan. I really appreciate. I'm glad to be here. I have a unconventional path. So after law school. I started right away in corporate America
Mm.
for several years, and then I went into consulting, and I did consulting for about 20 years before I started teaching about 10 years ago. And so I bring everything I learned through corporate America and through consulting, I bring to the classroom. So I don't just teach business; I live it. And so yeah, I have two roles here. I teach um, in the MBA program, in our graduate program. I teach strategic management and leadership. And in the strategic management course that I teach, it is a capstone. So we have real live, we can talk more about that. We have real live clients for that class. And then my second role, which is I'm the faculty director for the Oregon Consulting Group, which is a faculty managed, student run organization that for fee for service, we get clients. So it's real deliverables, real pressure, and real money on the table for the students. Then I don't stop there. I during the summertime I teach a wine marketing course in our study abroad program, and that we take 50 students from the University of Oregon and plant them in Siena, Italy, of all places. And it's a real live class where we split the students up into 8 different groups. We go to 8 different wineries, and the students are in their groups are required to do a marketing plan and a sustainability plan for that real client and an Italy winery. And at the end, we give them a live presentation, and it is just it's just phenomenal. So I've been involved in experiential learning ever since I hit the ground teaching 10 years ago.
Wow, that's really impressive. I'm looking forward to our great conversation, which start to emerge in my head already. Accidentally, I also studied law. I did a first degree in law in London at the London School of
Very cool.
Economics. And then I decided to move into strategy and consulting as well. I worked for GE. For me, the motives at that time was that I wanted to be on the decision maker's side. I
Mhm.
felt that lawyers, they get a business case, which then has to be put into some forms. But I wanted to be on the pragmatic side of it. How was it for you? What was the reason for you back then to change from law to consulting?
Yeah, well, after being the exact same thing, I had the ability to, from all my years of working in insurance claims, I still use my law degree for that, for those kind of things. But all that experience, I could apply immediately into consulting and make a big difference. I wanted to make an impact in it with every single one of my clients and their patients. And so that's where that was my doing something bigger than myself, so to speak, or my sense of purpose.
Great. For me, then another change, which is also related to you, I also teach and taught on the MBA, business strategy, but I started to realize that the people hijack the strategy. So we start to make the great analysis. We come up with the plans,
Yeah.
be it merger and acquisition, be it a diversification. But then there are always these people in the group who have their personal interests. And so I moved into organizational behavior and then into leadership. So how was that for you, this transition? Or how are these two topics areas connected?
You mean between strategy and leadership?
Yeah, yes.
Boy, they're completely different, but bottom line is in a corporate environment, you're talking about strategic leading is what you're really talking about. And how do we there's a constant need to pivot based upon the environment that's going on, whether it's political, social, and technical environments. Just look at AI, and so leaders have to have a strategy, and so it's a combination of the two. So those students get me up for both classes, and so we get kind of a blend because we can talk about leadership first, and then we do strategy, and we can talk about what do you do as a leader in a situation that we bring up in the real lives, in the real world of dealing with their client in the classroom, and dealing with them to help them understand that strategy isn't just a plan. It takes leadership, and it takes an effort to push that through and get everybody in the company to understand and appreciate it.
Yes. This is the feeling I always had also, and still have in Harvard style case studies. Even though if you have staggered cases like one after the other, it's a very brain driven type of situation of decide what should be done, and then you see what happened a year afterwards, and then there's a new decision. So actually, this human interaction and this push for the strategy, whichever you have in your head, how to implement this becomes difficult. So how did then this gamification, the simulation game, end up on your desk? How did you discover FLIGBY in your particular case, for example? For me, it was easy. I live in this beautiful city called Budapest in Hungary, and although it's big, we know each other. And so I met colleagues who developed it, and I thought, let me try it out for my pedagogical use, and it grew and grew over the years. But how was it for you? How did you discover this tool, pedagogical tool for your mission as a pedagogue?
One of my colleagues, you know very well, Michael Crook, when I first started teaching leadership, he was teaching it too. And he says, hey, I'm teaching this simulation. It'd be great if you did it at the same time. I go, what is it? And then I ran into Judith, and I did the whole thing, and I go, this is the bomb, so to speak. This makes it really powerful with all the skill sets that are analyzed for each student. Plus, it is a real opportunity for students for the first time to be in a role of management and strategy and leadership at the same time, dealing with the real constructs of a business, conflicts with people, conflicts with profitability, conflicts with making choices every single day, running a winery, and we in Oregon, we're in wine country, it's Pinot Noir. So literally there's probably 20 wineries within 50 miles from here. So that's how we do that. Yeah, it's really great. I love it.
Yeah, since you mentioned Mike here, Crook, this is our book, on flow and FLIGBY and theory and practice.
Yeah.
How to resolve this. And we have asked him as a recommending person to put him, he's right on the back, right?
Yeah.
So this man is very important. He did his PhD with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and the tragedy of choice, what you should choose, and conflictive interests. And then he turned around this Patagonia, which I always mention as a great example of a flow company. They have flow rod, Sarin, this flow alert. When the wind is good enough, they can suspend the work and get into their physical flow of surfing. And moving on into pedagogy. So I'm very happy to hear this connection right this moment to you, and that's how you got it and you felt it. So let us speak about experiential learning. So on the one hand, there is this conceptual approach of learning, why it's important, but then on the other hand, you have all your experience, how it's been moving on from something we should have into what you actually have. Tell me a little bit about your approach to this. How does it look in your courses or in your practice? You mentioned a wide portfolio.
Yeah, like I said, I actually have two paths. So outside of the classroom, we get 100 students twice a year applying to be in our consulting group, which only holds about 40 to 45 students. And we have real clients, there's real stakes, there's real feedback. The students have to present their final presentations and recommendations and full implementation plans to these paying clients. And we're on a quarter system, is called a term system. So we have 3 10-week terms, and each term we do five clients each. So it's really pushing through, really grabbing that. And the students just walk out with deep skills of client relationships and professional presence and reading the room and really learning a whole lot of things about the business because they have to do a bunch of research. And when we say consulting, I really mean we're really doing market research, go to market research, data analytics, mostly go to market, those kind of things that we can do in that period of time. And it's just an unbelievable experience for that. And I'm lucky to have the opportunity to do that. It's the juice that drives me. Um, and then in the classroom, for example, I have two classrooms. The the strategy class, we have 5 clients, and we split those into 5 groups. They're local clients, and Zoltan, this is the real kicker here, for me at least. In order to go out and talk to businesses and see if they want to do it, all you have to do is ask. I talked to 6, I got 5 yeses in a matter of a week. It was that simple. And so in that class, they stack what we're learning, the frameworks and the theories, what we're learning into that. And at the end, they then do a presentation to those clients live in the classroom. It's really phenomenal. And then again, I told you about in the summer, which I'm preparing to do now, to go to Italy. We do the same thing with undergrad students in a foreign environment, and so they get to learn not only culture, but they also get to learn how to do those exact things: so client relations, understanding what the business of wine. It's a deep dive into that business, and it's better than anything I have ever done in the classroom.
Right. So these are the two portfolios, the students consulting activities and the strategy course where they have to get a client. And this is actually quite work intensive for you, isn't it? How can this become scalable? What if you would have 150 in the cohort, which for you are 2 parallels?
Yeah, well, they do reduce my course load, so it's 50%, 50/50. So I have 50. I have a workload of 50 instead of 100, and that other 50 gives me time to work in the consulting group as well. Um, and it's a balance because it gets busy at certain parts of the quarter, and not so much in other parts of the quarter, but it works really well. So I would say that for universities that are thinking about this, they really have to think about the balance between the workload and the teaching load in order to produce this. Yes, if I were to grow any further than that, I would absolutely ask for even a further reduction in teaching, in order to grow it to like 60 students. Yeah, and that therefore we would have 10 clients in a quarter.
Amazing. Yeah, you have to go out hunting very well for each cohort to have a qualitatively challenging
Yeah.
situations. So in this learning loop, where does this technology of digital technology, simulations, but for example, also FLIGBY fit into this portfolio of your teaching activities? How does that tie in?
It ties in beautifully with leadership. I mean, everything we learned in leadership, everything we learned in leadership comes out of that simulation, because it involves everything between people conflict, um, and making decisions and keeping people in the flow, which is really a difficult thing to do. Students learn that leadership isn't as easy as they thought it might be, and that they look at, and then also like judging other leaders. Now they sit back and relax before they make a decision on that. So it sounds like I love FLIGBY for those reasons. It has been really eye openers for students when we do the debrief, when they see where they are high, where they are low, and they go and they have a big aha on, oh, I need to really think about how I'm going out there in the world and going to what's my style of leadership, and that's really what comes out, and that's really what they really like about that. I've been doing simulations for a long time in my classrooms, but this is the best one I've ever had my entire life. I'm never going to let go of it.
So thank you for this. I think so too, but still, just for an intellectual purpose, like what are the differences? Because I have my own experience, but what are the differences between different types of simulations?
Most of the simulations were were gamified, which was cool, and it was you play it, and there's a few areas in which you can have a debrief and conversation. With FLIGBY, it was ongoing. It was ongoing between the groups of people that worked on it. It was ongoing for the individuals. It was ongoing for me to keep in touch with what's going on. So we'd watch some of these videos and watch some of the characters and their conflict, and we dissect that and say, what would you do in this particular case and why? And then I could bring out, because I was a manager in corporation, I could bring out all the things that I struggled with as a manager, not knowing what I wish I would have had FLIGBY when I was in college, not knowing what to do or not what to think, and not even knowing anything about flow, which made a huge difference. So I think the biggest difference between those is that it's kind of some of the simulations that I did in the past were just kind of one and done, where this gives you a feedback on a whole lot of things.
Yeah, so the feedback aspect is something which I also ask usually after the simulation is gone or finished, done. What are the results? And usually the results are basically in a numeric calculation, like a market share or a financial profitability. But here, actually, there you have all these characters telling you at the end of the story whether they liked your leadership style. Did you put them into flow? And then you are unsatisfied because maybe you didn't achieve the corporate atmosphere. So all these different algorithms make you learn as a player that this is very difficult to optimize for one dimension, and then you have the trade-off on the other one. And ultimately, you have to take the decisions, responsibility for the decision. So what I do is I ask them to replay after a few months, depending on the program length. In corporate settings longer, in university shorter, again in trios. So they replay jointly, and they have this debate between each other. So it creates actually a personal engagement, as you do apparently in the classroom, which is another alternative to bring in case situations and have a debate around that. Yeah. And after this data which arises from leadership skills, which you call leadership style, how does this support their experiential learning process?
Well, yes. So I have them take a look at then at the end and take a look at all their results and write a business leadership development plan. So this leadership development plan is how I would like to be a leader in a corporation in the future, and I make them do it kind of like as if they are, rather than as if they might be, or kind of I hope to or I want to. I don't like that at all. I want them to put themselves right in the shoes of the managers, like they did as the general manager in the winery, and say, pull out what's great, their strengths, and look at their blind spots or that they scored low on, and say, how are you going to navigate that inside? How are you going to navigate that as a leader moving forward? So it's about 3 pages long. I'm still reading those right now. And that's how I think that makes that more tangible.
Yes. In my practice, it goes like this, that I actually enjoy the moment when the participants, learners, discover their leadership skills, the strengths. 20, they have these 29, and how these actually match up with their previous image of themselves. But then comes this experiential effect that they must replay it, and they actually have to experiment, right? It's not just experience, but also experiment. And then at no cost, they can try to be a different person. And for what kind of experiments they should do is either driven by the skills which are rather low, measured in the game, and they really need to improve it for the role they wish to attain. And otherwise, they would be hanging around with a coach and it would get no feedback. But here they focus on a few skills they need to improve. Or alternatively, they want to really try out a different style and they want to see what kind of skill set would emerge from my different type of behavior. What would be the overall skill set emerging if I'm completely different? So this is something which is quite interesting. Now, you mentioned that this is pretty realistic, and one of our viewers here said, or asked, how realistic is the FLIGBY story? If I tell it, people say, yeah, Zoltan, he's co-developer, and he thinks so. But you, in your experience as a consultant and in various industries, are these realistic stories?
They are more realistic than I thought they would be. And so when I was in corporate America, I had 150 people I supervised and 10 directs. And I spent most of my time dealing with conflicts with people, issues with people, and trying to get them to do what they really were supposed to be there doing. And so this is really realistic. You have arguments between people, people like or dislike their annual reviews. You've got all these issues that are coming up on a constant basis, and you're still trying to get the job done. You're still trying to get profitability. You're still trying to get the spirit award. You're still trying to be sustainable. You're still trying to get a culture. You're still trying to control the culture, not in the corporation, but just as a part of your little group, my little 4 offices that I was supervising. And so that all showed up when I like that. That's what I said when I first did it myself. I was almost in like, holy man, I wish I would have had this before I started being a manager, because this would have really helped me, because all those issues really flared up big time.
Yes. So usually people like to work with the people who have the similar mindset or value system, and this then goes back to different personalities. People who have more an approach of on focusing on relationship, harmony, support, they actually prefer people around them who have the same value set. But in FLIGBY, there's only one person in this. All the others are different. Some of them would prefer somebody who's an innovator, who has great ideas, and a great idea is enough, suffices for going ahead, but doesn't need to be implemented. Again, others are the doers. They like to think along timeline and kilograms and pounds and volumes in terms of production. So here you can't escape. You have to deal with all of these personalities, right? And the other thing which I think is also interesting is that you have no escape in terms of time. Although you can interrupt the game in the various episodes and the sessions physically, the story continues. So people come back with the issue. They're persistent on what they want you to do.
Yes.
So they don't give you a rest. In a text-written case study, you can actually divert in the debate, but in the real world you can't. And that's why here this is much closer to this to the game, to the reality, I would say. Yes, we have another question related to this question on how do leadership styles and leadership skills connect with each other. The question is, working as an executive coach, Anita is wondering if she understands it correctly, that through developing skills, can you develop the leadership style?
Great question. I say yes, and what I mean by that is if you do an assessment of your skills. So early in my leadership class, we do several things. We do what's called the DISC of motivating skills. What's your behavior style? And it's very popular. We also do an assessment on their emotional intelligence, and it's a real eye opener. And I'd only do this with graduate students. I wouldn't do this with graduate students, because it's a pretty tough role, and you get better at intellectual emotional intelligence as you get older. It's nothing straight out of high school. And so with that, and then also talking about some skill sets like integrity, authentic listening, and being caused in the matter of being involved in accepting and responsibility, and thinking about something bigger than yourself. Why are you here? Why are you doing these kind of things? What's your ultimate goal? So we talked about all those kinds of things just as we were starting the simulation, so that they can think about their skill sets as they're going through the program. And so yes, you can build personal leadership style. That's what I wanted them to do at the end, after they got all the results, through learning all these skill sets. And we spent a great deal of time talking about communication styles, and how interacting with people, and developing trust with people is really helpful for that. And then we talked about authentic listening in terms of developing that skill to be accepted as a leader. So yes, you have to work on it. It has to be developed. And yes, I'm a true believer that there may be a few natural born leaders, but most of us, including myself, had to learn and develop being a leader, and
Yes,
had to work at it very long time.
yes. Well, in the scientific community, we strongly believe that skills are dynamic. And because skills are dynamic, leadership skills are dynamic. And because leadership skills are dynamic,
Yeah.
and developable leadership can be developed. Maybe for Anita and for other viewers, my work as an academic research director is to analyze the FLIGBY data. At the moment, we have over 22,000 people worldwide who played FLIGBY in all sorts of different cultural settings and industry settings. Usually it's on MBAs and in corporate training. So this is the segment which we make leadership development in a business context sensibly. And we cut off all the countries. We left the European and the American players at 14,000, and we made a huge factor analysis. And different literature describes different styles of leadership. And we found that in this factor analysis, the 29 skills can be reduced to 3 major styles. The first one is the authentic leadership. The second one is the visionary leadership, and the third one is the servant leadership, it seems. So these seems to be the prevailing 3 directions of what leadership styles of FLIGBY data can be supported. And all of these 3 different styles have their skills connecting with that style. Now, following Csikszentmihalyi's flow theory, there is a 4th one, which is called the flow promoting leadership style. Scott, what is the flow promoting leadership style for you in your observation?
Boy, I would say, yeah. I would say that when I was in management, I always had a focus on treating everybody the same, regardless of who they were and what role they played in the business. And if I could get people, I was really into getting people to show up and do what they needed to do on their own without instructions. I always never wanted to be that person that had to be critical, or had to be super on top of people to make sure they got their role done. If I could get them to be excited about what they did, and get them to do it on their own without pushing them at all, and that they enjoyed having that autonomy to do their work and do it the way they wanted to, and get it done the way we wanted to get done. That was flow to me. That was getting, and then I would hire and promote based upon that. That's what I was looking for, and that's what I was really thinking about, in terms of, if I could get everybody to go, hey, I got a job to do, and if I do my job, everybody else does their job, we're going to have a phenomenal environment. Let's do it. That's how I think of it.
Yes. So here we have a question appearing on screen. What has been the takeaway from your students to how do they perceive the conflict in the characters between the various generations? A number of young leaders struggle when they're managing older staff, right? That's a good dimension. Does the FLIGBY game help in this capacity?
Yeah, well, yes, because there was a younger guy, Joe. He had who's having a baby, and you have to have that empathy to let him go and be with his wife during the birth, and so that there was kind of that. But
Mhm.
and I would say one of the strengths of FLIGBY is it takes away a lot of your limiting beliefs. And so one of the limiting beliefs that younger people have is that I'm too young to supervise this person. No, you're not. I'm too I'm too I don't have enough skills, right? And so if I go back to the student consulting that they do on the side, this is not a class, but we do on the side. I think it's the same way. The students the students realize that they don't have to have 5 years of experience to help a business right now. They don't have to graduate and get skill sets into a company to relate to older people who are running these business, and they meet with them on a weekly basis. So the combination of the two, I would say, yes, it does. Does it teach you step by step? Probably not, but it gets you to think. It gets you to think on, maybe I just have a limiting belief on it. If I step into the role and I utilize the flow, I can get people to, no matter what age, to do what they need to do.
Yes. So on the one hand, you are general manager as a player of FLIGBY. You are general manager of a family business. So there are all
Right.
these layers that you're supposed to be following family members who own this company, who work
Yeah.
below you. So it's not just a generational challenge. It's actually the same guy happens to be the owner's grandson who will inherit this company, and you still have to lead him and tell him, yes, no, come here, do this, and here you can contribute. So it's not just a generational, but an organizational power issue. But at the same time, playing the story, you as a player actually perceive that, okay, I can survive this. And
Yeah.
Csikszentmihalyi says that, having overcome a challenge with your skills makes you possible to overcome a next level. So this is the essence of experiential learning on the one hand. I also think that when players, even if they're very young, they receive data about the top skills, and that is benchmarked against others who are much older or more senior who played it earlier, they feel boosted. They know what the basis of their organizational leadership should be and could be and is because of what skills they have. But also there is actually, just to the question which Marion Carr asked, there is the opposite of that as well. There is the lady who's a little bit elder, and she's being bullied by another colleague in the
Yeah.
story because she's too old. And this is unacceptable, right? This
Yeah.
this harassment. And at the same time, the participants, the learners need to learn that there is ground for this critique, but this critique is on the performance and the activities of that person, not based on that person's age.
Right.
With Rebecca and Ellen's conflict. So it's not just how to manage older people, but somebody is bullying somebody older, and how to stop it, and how to have the professional intervention on that. Good. I would like to go back a little bit on this winery thing, because very often I'm being asked, but we don't run a winery, we run an insurance company, we are automotive supplier, we are energy, national energy grid company. Don't you have another simulation? Some other companies have a story around telecoms or breweries, but not winery. So what 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 can one learn from a winery story?
I think you said it. This is a family business,
Mhm.
and family business has their own dynamics, which is actually harder to run than a real business sometimes, because of the relationships. Um, you really don't need to know anything about a winery. You don't need to know the operations of a winery. They give the information that's stacked in the library. It gives you all the information you will ever need for this game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge too, that opens up the eyes for my students when I first tell them that they're going to be the general manager of a winery. They're going, "Whoa, I don't know anything about that." great because you're going to be working with the people, not with the process of the winery. And you're not going to be picking grapes.
Yes.
You're not going to be balancing the pH of the wine. You're not doing any of those kind of things. You're running a business, and running a business requires you to get people into flow. The way you get people into flow is to really take your time and figure out what you're going to do, but you don't have a lot of time to do that. And so you have to really balance between those kind of things. I don't see that different from any other business. I was in the insurance business myself. We did thousands of claims a year. That was very, very difficult with a lot of people, with a lot of moving parts. I actually like the winery because they can't relate to it, so they don't have to have that. Oh, I know that. I never want students to say I know that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I think from my observation, what is interesting is that, first of all, you're general manager of an interim process. So first of all, it's more like a project management, because you know you will be there for a season, and you have to be between firefighter, at the same time be guardian of the family's long-term perspective. The second thing is that there is something called the market for general managers, for decision makers, right? So ultimately, by the end of the story, you will be measured on, did you achieve the Spirit of the Wine Award? And if you didn't do well, then Bob Turul, the owner of the story, should fire you and get a better manager on the top of it. And then comes all this business strategy of growth through more volume and higher margin because your costs are down because of the scales. Or do you really want to stay with the more exclusive differentiation? So it's Michael Porter's classic competitive strategy, which comes back in universities in any industry. And then you have this people aspects. Yes. So in Italy, where the national flag, by the way, is the same like for my country, Hungary, but it's just the other way around.
Yeah.
What are the wine learning points you make? So how can a company visit and the simulation be integrated? And in the wine story, it's pretty obvious and very attractive. You go around and you learn and you see the different country. But what if somebody's not in the wine segment of education and they play this FLIGBY? How can a company internship or company visit comprehend or complement the FLIGBY experience?
I think
experience.
Yeah. If I understand the question right.
So I ask again, if another leadership professor would be using this simulation, but they have no wine in the country, you mentioned 10 of a dozen of them in 50 kilometers miles circle, and they don't travel into another country, what kind of industry should they visit in order to complement this leadership development which this simulation could offer?
Well, because there's wineries around me, it doesn't mean I go to all the wineries. I'm just interested in that. But I think again, I think it's not the business; it's the business of people. And so it really is your leadership skills tacked against businesses in any environment, tacked against your people skills in any environment. It has. I want to avoid. I like the fact that the students have no knowledge of wineries.
Yes, because what we do is when we have an intensive week of incoming MBA students, we take them, for example, to other family businesses, be it technology. So this is for the leadership culture, the long term. But sometimes it's purpose-driven organizations like ecological breweries or ecological bakeries, places where they have a social mission and they want to be embedded in the local web of communities. So here's another question. I found the game a very good platform for teaching private equity leaders to acquire new family-owned legacy businesses leadership. So comment on this great question.
Yeah, because private equity comes in and they want to be profitable. and that sometimes interferes with the culture of a family, and what they've done over generations. In Italy, we went to a winery that started in 1199, and it's been passed on through generations. And so that's really tough. But at the same time, it's a great learning experience for both sides, the family business side and the private equity of buying that practice. Yeah, that would be really tough. I can go back to my days of consulting, and that was in dentistry. And now in America, so much there's a lot of private equities eating up small individual one man or one woman dentistry, and changing the whole world of dentistry to making it as profitable as possible. And that changes the whole experience of the patient. And so we want, and so in the winery, we don't want to change the whole experience of the wine drinkers or the customers for that winery, just because there's a different owner, because we don't see the ownership at all. When you buy a bottle of wine from the store, you don't see the leadership at all, but you do taste and remember that experience. So that is phenomenal. That's a good point. I thank you for bringing that up. That's another seminar.
Scott, this is the moments I have on my MBA courses. Participants bring in so many different facets after having done this for 2,000 MBAs by now, and they always bring a different aspect of whatever is on their mind and their agenda. So this simulation is a little bit like this Hungarian Rubik cube, the magic cube, and you can twist it around, look at it like a kaleidoscope from different aspects. But this private equity and running the family business on a professional way is super interesting, because there is this Larry, young owner, and he has his personality. He doesn't really want to run the company, but still you have to teach him to experience all the functions, and he has to learn that he needs to make a business plan. Having an idea, which is his flow, is not enough. He needs to go into his anti-flow, which he doesn't like, and come up with a calculation for whatever he's proposing there. And another interesting element related to this question is that in startup venture capitalists, right, they have this numbers-driven approach, which you probably got a lot. It's Excel sheets. It's all about return and numbers, and it's similar to the project managers, that they start to realize that there is the human leadership aspect to drive those numbers. So they will not want to invest into a great number where you don't have a story around what leadership culture there will be, who will be the leading this, what kind of skills are necessary to implement those numbers. Okay, so we got a great appreciation of our conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is private equity roll-ups of the small mom and pop companies, and how it exchanges and changes the experience of the customer. Okay. Speaking still about winery, and it's actually a cross-cultural experience as well. So although the story is set in California, it is actually applicable across many different countries and regions. And you mentioned the media library in FLIGBY, where you can read about the technology. So that caters for the experiential learning style, because some people rush through the story, they play it in 3.5, 4 hours. And this is their style of doing things fast. So I see when that's finished, this is the average time. And I also see how much they did in the media library. But again, others who have a learning style of more reflection and more data-driven, they do all the readings. That takes for them 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours to do. And then some of them tell me, "Oh, Professor, it was so interesting to learn about the different wine glasses there are, right? You would have a red drawer," and I just got that. So do you have these moments of surprise as well, that they tell you something about the wine industry which was surprising and motivating for them, like a game, a feature, which
The only one that I can say right now is a bunch of them came up to me and they said, "We've never been to a winery and a wine tasting, and we were just so curious because of this game. So we went to a winery over the weekend and spent some time at on a tour and tasting wine." So
Yes.
bravo.
So you brought some type of purpose, right, to explore the
Yeah.
real world
Yeah.
beyond their own activities and some
Yeah.
hobbies. Well, Scott, thank you very much for your time. I think we were again in flow because almost an hour our time is up and we didn't realize it. I hope the viewers got also into flow by watching us. And we would like to ask our colleagues to show the slide with our 5-part topics which we have had, which we went from session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4, and session 5. These are the topics we have been discussing until now. You can review them on the various channels. So they're all very valuable with different experts. This time, Scott, I'm thanking you for today's sharing of your thoughts, experiences, and really a passionate conversation on your approach to experiential learning. And we will continue this session over the next semester in the fall. And because we are all working on the same thing to find the best way for educating future leaders and use the requisite amount of theory and focus on the practice where they will have to work. And it should also be driven by research based on what's the latest theory and the numbers. So this session will continue, and I'd like to say goodbye to everybody. Stay connected. May the flow be with you. Greetings from Budapest, Dr. Zoltan Buzady. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Zoltan. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate being here.